Welcome to the next of a series of messages we offer online. This is brought to you by the folks at Raleigh Congregational Church in Raleigh, Massachusetts. This is Reverend Tom Bentley, the pastor. The title this time is In the Cross of Christ I Struggle. Right now we're hearing in the background the music of the song In the Cross of Christ I Glory. And so it is with life. Struggle and blessing, pain, and also deep comfort. So welcome to this time together, and we thank you for joining us. If you would like to know more about the Raleigh Congregational Church and its ministry, there will be information offered to you at the end of this video. So thank you, and peace and best wishes in your journey. So grace and peace to you from God our Creator and our friend Jesus. So let's look right at our reading this week in the Gospel of Matthew, and we're reading from the New Revised Standard Version. From that time on, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and undergo great suffering at the hands of the elders and the chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and on the third day be raised. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, God forbid it, Lord. This must never happen to you. But he turned and he said to Peter, Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. For you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things. Then Jesus told his disciples, If any want to be my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit them if they gain the whole world but forfeit their life? Jesus makes it clear in this conversation with the disciples that he has to go to Jerusalem. He has to suffer at the hands of religious leaders there, and he has to be executed. Peter can't reconcile this with his earlier vision of Jesus, his understanding of who this man is. And he legitimately pushes back in horror and sadness and annoyance too. How can this be? And Jesus' response is abrupt and intriguing. He calls Peter a stumbling block, which in Greek is the word scandalon, which is this idea of a rock that's in the way, in the path, and you stumble over it, the stumbling block. So this rock that Peter was proclaimed to be previously is now something that's in the way. And so it is with our relationship with this cross. The cross is a very disturbing symbol. All through the years that folks have gathered to share the story of Jesus, they've had to wrestle with this strange story that has their beloved charismatic soul leader tortured and executed. Aren't those who are powerful people, aren't they above this cruel and capricious viciousness? Can't they be powerful enough to dissipate the wrongs of the world? Why should this happen? How can they be victims? The world, therefore, is more powerful than they are? So ask any who are in a religious or a faith community or any gathering. When one's leader is taken down, you got a problem. Yet there is something so fundamentally powerful in this story that it in its pain and suffering actually brings us back to the focus of the divine. Because what the cross introduces us to is this great contradiction that we all must wrestle with in life. That suffering does not go away when there is love. Indeed, it deepens. That the wrongs of the world are not immediately corrected by the power of the moment, no matter how just, no matter how confrontive and effective that power can be in the best of ways. Injustice continues. Human beings are still estranged from themselves and from their divine creator and their divine purpose. That's the struggle of life. And Jesus says, to prevail, you need to cut to the very middle of it. You need to have the courage to cut between the spaces of contradiction and cruelty down to the very core place where God is, God in the fullest being of presence, and that is the place of love. And love is vulnerable. Love holds the fullness of truth, but it can be crushed, it can be abused, it can be tortured, it even can be killed for the moment. Yet it comes back. And when it comes back, it is even more powerful, yet strangely still vulnerable and fragile in its presence. If you've ever been in love, you know how vulnerable you are. If you've ever taken the risk to be so innocent in the presence of possibility, then you know that love is not some strong place to stand, but some open place to be revealed. The word weakness doesn't really work well, although there is a weakness here. There is the absence of the kind of strength that we want. And because we want that strength, because we want that power to overpower the wrong of the world, then we actually become something that's in the way of God's grace. There are great stories about the divine. There are millions of narratives and billions of souls who have been on this planet to follow this unique calling that there is more, there is purpose, there is indeed a guiding presence in our human experience. That's the theism that connects us all. What's unique with the Christian experience is the cross. You will find all the other elements within all the other great followings, but you will not find the cross. And for my personal testimony right now, that's why I'm a Christian. And sometimes I say to myself, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be this. Can't I get off of this thing? Give me something else. And my life is not filled with turmoil and profound struggle, usually. Yet the connective we have in the Christian experience is this, that your life is ultimately of choosing intentional suffering to transform wherever you are and whoever you are. You notice how I said intentional suffering. Jesus showed Peter his plan, if you will, to go to Jerusalem, that this had to happen. And Jesus knew that. We can argue all sorts of cosmological arguments about why Jesus knew this or how Jesus knew this. That's not the point. The point is that the love Jesus bore and the truth that he proclaimed was a threat to the power of strength and overbearing oppression the world presents. And the only way ultimately to resist and transform that is not through further power and violence, but through this vulnerability that the cross invites. The unique story here is that when you give your heart and soul to this place of love, you will suffer, yet you will not be destroyed or defeated ultimately, even if you lose your life physically, because Jesus invites us to the collective, moving grace of God. There have been so many human souls who have taken that intentional path to that place of suffering and self-sacrifice. And sometimes it ended with them losing their physical life. Often it resulted in pain. I think of our own brave sisters and brothers in our human family who struggled to bring civil rights into the forefront of the American consciousness and insist that this cruelty and this repression was wrong. And they did it not in weakness, but in vulnerability, as they prayed for and loved the very people who oppressed them, who hurt them, who even killed their loved ones and even took their lives too. That's the invitation of the cross. Ooh, it's not easy to love people you feel you want to hate. It's not easy to make yourself vulnerable to someone or something that threatens you. Yet that is the story. And that's the story for our time, as it has been for all times. We are watching unfold a unique moment in American history, although it is certainly a continued rhythm. We are trying to overcome chattel slavery and its grotesque institutional oppressions. And even though it's generations ago, it's as alive today as it was then in the lives of people who are of African origin, who are of color, who have to negotiate a society that still has a reflexive default place that prefers and benefits those with white, or whatever you want to call it, light skin. It's a strange thing. This is a powerful moment. It's important for all of us to realize that loving one another, even those we call enemy, even those we consider corrupt, even those we have identified as the very source of the pain, the suffering, and the cruelty, we need to love those souls and love ourselves at the same time. And we can do that if we love God with all we have, if we get out of our own way, and we really put our hearts and souls on the rock of truth that Jesus invites us to connect to and stand on. And that rock of truth is vulnerable love, quiet suffering, not deficient in any way, for that love is incredibly powerful, even militant. We need that now. It is scary because as the bulldozers come at us and we're holding hands, singing a song of love and grace and forgiveness, and they crunch over us, I'm sure there's a moment when we wonder, oh God, why have you forsaken me? When Jesus was crucified, he had that same moment of doubt. But now we can understand in faith that this connective over the eons of grace redeeming us from our own cruelties, of love bringing us out of the shadows into the fullness of who we can be as human beings. That is the great story that does not die. We need that story now more than ever. If you can find that story somewhere else other than the cross, then I pray for you with joy. I can't. That's the way it is. I hope Jesus doesn't ask me to pick this cross up and literally be tortured to death. But if that is the moment of decision that must be made, I say with certainly with trepidation, so be it. So in the name of the one who loves us still and is with us always, Jesus, I say thank you for being here today, and amen. Goodbye. Thank you for spending time with us. If you'd like to know more about the Rowley Congregational Church and its ministry, you can go online at firstchurchrowley.org. If you'd like to offer support through a gift, you can send gifts to 175 Main Street, P.O. Box 364, Rowley, Massachusetts 01969. And of course, we'd always like to hear from you. You can call us at 978-948-3993. So again, peace and best wishes. Goodbye.